everybody. It is show number 2 of Premier Fantasies. We've got a couple of new faces that are gracing our show today. They're at the bottom of the screen, but before we get that, I'm going to welcome Hlohlo back. Welcome.
Welcome. You've
been quite busy, actually. You've been working with Gabriel and Keegan, doing some How to Play Fantasy League shows.
Absolutely. So we're going to load a couple of new shows on today for everyone who's a novice, who doesn't really understand how to play the game, so that everyone can just get into the swing of things. I see Marcy's pointing at her head saying, yeah, no, that I'm one of them. So these tips that are coming on for you, Keegan and Gabriel did a fantastic job yesterday.
Okay, well, let's welcome Gabriel back on the show. And Gabriel, you're having more airtime than Ted Koppel, I must say.
Well, you know, when you're an expert in things, I suppose, like, people want you to be there. So I totally understand that, but I'm happy to be here regardless. So.
Okay, well, it's good to have new faces on. Before we do because we've already spoken about Klopp, who's there below us, we're going to welcome Sky Tshabalala in town. Sky, welcome. We thought, you know what, we're actually quite Joburg central. So we thought we'd embrace the East Coast, at the risk of bringing on another Manchester United fan. But welcome, Sky. You and your partner, who we haven't met yet, James, your team member, are joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Neil. It's thank you for the invite. You probably didn't do the homework well enough, because you don't want a Man United fan. Well, you got the biggest Man United fan in KZN. So, I mean... it's interesting that the biggest Man United fan in KZN is with the biggest Liverpool fan, James, who's going to be my partner for this fantasy. So it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be interesting. I don't know who's going to make the final decisions, if it's Ole or if it's going to be Klopp. I don't know. So
it's going to be lit. It's going to be lit.
It's quite interesting, a couple of dynamics, because Barney Gurnan, right, is a Spurs supporter, and he's with a Chelsea supporter in the form of OG Malefe. OG is a big Chelsea fan. We don't have that problem because we're both Spurs fans. And obviously below us, Marcelle Gordon and Liam Del Carme, if you didn't already know, with Klopp, who's there, there was no argument, Marcelle, about the team name there.
No, not at all, except that some of them were even cheesier than you've become used to come from this.
Klopp, who's there? Liverpool come knocking, you sign. I mean, it's simple.
Oh, wow.
Look, there's also there's a double play on that name, because Klopp is also the name of a song that the minstrels in Cape Town have been made popular. But that's a story for another day.
Anyway, welcome. Listen, I've worked with Liam many years on Super Saturday, so he learnt his cheese from Terry Payne, who was the best of all cheeses. He was not the cheddars. He was the
most mature cheese, I would imagine, as well.
Absolutely. But welcome to you guys. So first of all, before we go any further, if folks haven't watched episode 1, you can go and watch that. But I'm going to let Hlohlo explain to you exactly what this is all about. It's Premier Fantasies. I have to say, Sky, we had a bit of a security issue on the first show, because Barney Gurnan tuned in expecting Premier Fantasies to be a completely different show. We had no idea that it was a football show. So initially, we didn't put him on. I don't want to tell you how he was dressed for the first edition.
But Neil, will make for very interesting algorithms, because I'd be very interested to see where our show turns up on Google searches.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you that both in the Gurnan household and the Andrews household, that rhythm methods, algorithms or otherwise, don't work. Testified by the many children around. So we want basically people watching, right, to play against us. So it's a challenge for our teams, but we want you to test your knowledge against the teams we've got on Premier Fantasies.
Correct. So basically what we want everyone to do is to join the league. We're going to put the league, what do you call that thing?
The code.
Yes, the league code on the screen for everyone, so that everyone can join in and become part of our league. And the more the merrier, so we want to feel that competition. But apart from that, the teams internally will be competing with each other as they compete with you.
And we're going to hopefully attract a few celebrities. I spoke to Pommy Mbangwa, who's another Manchester United fan. So I think that's
What a man. What a man.
Stop.
Tommy, watching, you might have to go into your own league. Although we want to, he's very excited about the Fantasy League and the return of action. But yes, the plan, of course, is for you guys out there, and I have to warn you, if you do well and you're on top of the league, then we're going to be giving you a call to come on this show. However, if you do really poorly, we might be getting you on to explain why you ended up getting only 12 game week points.
That should be even more reason to get people on.
Should be more reason, yes, to make us look good. Anyway, the first question I want to ask is Sky. So Sky, return to Premier League action, 12th of September. We've all been starved of it. I think that I saw Arsenal apply to bring some of their fans back slowly, but at least we're going to get a football league back on and back started, and we can't wait.
Yeah, I want to say it's been a long time, but luckily we've had some form of football in between the late finish after the restart and now. Obviously, Man United not in action, Man City also not in action, so I'm not too excited for the first game week. We back on the 19th. But, I mean, what a way to kick things off. Liverpool against Leeds. I mean, who does that draw, you know? I mean, Leeds haven't been there for a long time. They're playing at Anfield. A pity, one of those games that you would want to have fans at the stadium. So that's a bit of a bummer. But for me, at this moment in time, fans will come back slowly. I'm just excited to have the best league in the world back. So excited. I don't know who's going to win it. My predictions are, by the way, myself and predictions, we're terrible. I am terrible when it comes to predictions. So, yeah, man, just keen to have everything back, and obviously the small battles on Premier League Fantasy. They just make it more special. And, I mean, yeah, I never thought I'd watch Crystal Palace against Aston Villa, but I do now for Zaha, wins my captain. So yeah, you know?
I was going to ask Guy one thing. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, because you mentioned it with you and your predictions. So I won't tell this show, Premier Fantasies, how you told me on Saturday, Neil, don't phone me between 12 and 6 of the night because I'm going to be watching Chiefs win the title.
Yeah. But wrong country. No, we're talking about the Premier League here.
Okay, sorry.
No. Yeah.
Moving swiftly along.
I'm quite excited for the Liverpool Leeds game. I'll always support that. Much as I love Liverpool, I mean, if I was not a Spurs fan, I'd probably be a Liverpool fan. But I'm kind of supporting the underdog on this one. I want Leeds to do well.
I want to bring in Liam here because you will know Liam. Obviously, Lucas Radebe is an absolute legend. We all know that. Don't start singing. Gabriel, don't start singing Ruby, 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 the Kaiser Chiefs stuff. They obviously... That's where they got their name via Lucas Radebe. But also Philemon Masinga, Chipper. There's a lot of Leeds supporters that have been dormant in this country for 20 years.
I can just think of two esteemed sports writers. I think you may know both of them, maybe one better than the other. There's Rob Howing, who works for News, who's a big Leeds supporter, and he's been quite vocal the last couple of weeks. And then you may or may not know him, Peter Davies is also an ardent Leeds fan.
Of course, yeah, I forgot about Peter was a Leeds supporter. And so is Robert Bloomberg in Cape Town. There's a lot of Leeds supporters that are delighted to be back. Gabriel.
But there's a lot of them also now coming back, I mean, out of the closet, as it were, supporting the team. Yes. As you say, use the word movement earlier.
I'm so glad you're on the show, Liam. Thank you. Gabriel, Marcelle, you can't take him anywhere, can you?
No, I can't. Because of lockdown, I really, quite literally, cannot take him anywhere.
I'm defeated.
I'd love to take him and leave him in the traffic, but there's not even traffic.
There's no traffic. And to be fair, traffic won't leave me.
Gabriel, first week is interesting, and we've discussed this before for folks watching. Even though we've got a lot of United supporters, we're Spurs, you are limited to only 3 players in any one team. So what I like about this is that it doesn't matter if you are an Arsenal, Chelsea fan. At the end of the day, you've got to separate that because you can't pick 11, in your case, United fans, United players, not that you would do. So it's interesting. And the money spend, of course, is where do you find your value?
Right. So it's a blessing and a curse to have your 3 players that you're able to choose only from one team, because I'm quite sure that Klopp, who's there, amongst other teams, but they'd love to have Salah and Mane and Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. And to be fair, I mean, based on how they performed last season, who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah.
So it's actually very good that you're only limited to 3, but the smart play as well would be to try and focus on one of the big players from separate teams as well, because you don't want to just waste your budget. You do have a budget, and you need to make sure that your team is balanced. So as opposed to going for Trent Alexander and Robertson and Salah, perhaps 2 or 1 of those, and then start looking to other teams of players who you think will be able to add value to your squad within your 100 million budget.
Marcelle, this show is not about getting strategy from each other, because we want you guys as teams to be able to do your own thing and not give away your trade secrets, certainly not until we've started on Saturday. But I wanted to ask you guys down there, how does it work? We're going to have the same dynamic here. We haven't even started discussing it. Is about team tactics. Clearly, Sky's going to have the same with James. We are both Liverpool fans, Marcelle and Liam, but that's really not going to get you over the problem of what team you decide and your strategy. Do you spend money defensively? Do you spend money up front? You know what?
Yeah, the dynamic in our household is going to be very interesting, because it's quite obvious. I'm the emotional fan, and Liam is the technician. So you know that just by if you come and watch sports at our house, he will sit on his side of the couch very quietly, either very quietly keeping his joy to himself, but that's for therapy, not for now, or he sits and he just steams as things go more and more wrong on the television screen. And on the other side of the couch, I'm the one with choice words from Cape Town coming out of my mouth every few seconds. And then after the game, there's lots of "I told you so's" from me and that kind of thing. And about half an hour later, we start talking again. So that's going to be very interesting how that translates to actually picking teams. So I think I will probably be the expert on going with your gut and going with the emotion, although he doesn't think that's an expertise. And he'll be the technician and saying, I know you love Virgil van Dijk, but he's not having, the last 3 games haven't gone well for him. We actually have to let him go. And then I'll switch off the Wi-Fi and run away with the router.
I feel
so Sky, you're going to have a challenge of your own, obviously, because you're not in the same house as James. But it's something.
That is probably a good thing.
It might be a good thing, but you're going to obviously have to communicate. I mean, are you going to divide your team up? Are you going to say, well, James, you choose 5 players or 6 players, and I'll choose 6? Or are you going to try and thrash it out amongst you?
So I'll be very honest. James is the statistic guy. I'm the more horses for courses guy. I mean, we were talking about it this weekend already. He told me a stat or something that, because he knows his stuff. He's like, well, the best time to use your wild card is probably the 4th or 5th week the first wild card of the league. I don't know that. I use my wild card when there's like a double game week and all that kind of stuff. He's the one that's kind of planned for like a 3-week period and stuff, because he'll tell you that, oh, Salah will have to go play for Egypt and then his wife is giving birth, so maybe he won't be in the right frame of mind. I don't know that. I look at the stats and all that kind of stuff, you know? So it's going to be very interesting. James sends a lot of nice voice notes explaining his decisions, you know? So he's going to make the final decision. I'm just going to be the guy who comes in there and hopefully gets 1 or 2 lucky picks where I can get a Danny Ings who scores for 4 weeks in a row and then tells James to drop him, and then get a Vardy who's going to score for 3 weeks in a row. So I'm going to be that guy, but he's going to take care of all the stats and all the form and all the head-to-head when this guy plays this guy. And yeah, so it's going to be very interesting. I think it's a different, complicated, but okay dynamic that we're going to have. And then obviously spice in Liverpool and Man United fans. So yeah, crazy.
I think our dynamic will be more like the Roy Evans, Roddy Moran dynamic from Liverpool, when they sort of co-managed for a little while.
Yeah.
And see what that brought Liverpool.
So old.
How are you going to play?
Who's those references?
Yeah, like I'm about to Google Ronnie Evans. I'm like, who's that?
Exactly. Come to my world.
Roy Evans and Ronnie Moran.
Roy Evans, Ronnie Moran.
Yeah. If we had time, I'm sure Liam will tell you about the locker room, hey, the boot locker, where everybody came through at Liverpool.
Yes, from the Shankly.
Bob Paisley, all of that. Anyway, Hlohlo's asked me a very interesting question about how the dynamic is going to work in our house. It's a leading question, folks. She wants me to publicly humiliate myself on air and enter into an argument. I'm not going to do that. So, Boo, you're going to be in charge. It's
of course I am.
Yeah.
You said Boo.
It's easier.
That's smart.
Just before we go, right, and remind you that there's only a couple of days left and we want you to join our league. Just the name that, Sky, your team's come up with, because you mentioned Ings earlier on. I think your backup name was Ings Can Only Get Better or something like that. But you've got, James has gone for your name. What is it and how do we say it?
So I was going with Ings Credible. Not about how he's going to get better. He got better when he left Liverpool. So Ings Credible. It's true. Sorry, guys.
He got to play.
Yeah, exactly. He did get to play. So our name, we've gone with a lad from Stamford Bridge who's just been bought by Mr. Lampard. So we've gone with are we Havertz a laugh? Are we Havertz a laugh?
I think you know what happened. I blame Liam and Marcelle for this because they Klopp who's there started a trend. We were just all very straightforward. Gabriel and Keegan's team is a little bit of a tongue twister with the Stretford Tinkerers. We've actually got a straightforward name.
Yeah, stars aligned.
Stars aligned, yeah.
Stars aligned.
Stars aligned, yeah. We've got this. And then, of course, Barney and OG
Starlight.
Isn't SA part of Starlight?
Not anymore.
Well, we're hoping to take off. We don't. Anyway, guys, Sky, thanks very much for joining us. We'll meet James in due course, who's your team member. We've now met Klopp, who's there. I asked Barney this challenge as to who he thought was his biggest danger, him and OG, and he quickly said actually that Keegan and Gabriel, because they sounded like they know the most, and he said he's a novice. But
just a stat, they actually came in the overall rankings. They were in the 100,000th percentile. So if you look at the rankings in the world, there are 7 million players in last season, and they were in the 100,000s.
You then invited them then. We're going to get embarrassed.
I blame you.
It was a lucky season. That's all it was. Just a lucky season.
I just want to say, I've just made myself, she's in charge of the team, but I've just made myself executive producer of Premier Fantasies. I'm bringing in a rule that after week 1, you can change partners. Gabriel, joining you later.
We actually have a backup plan.
Can we have subs? Can we have super subs if one team member can't make it?
Yes. Rolling subs.
Not sure.
Rolling subs. Okay.
You can bring in celebrities. No, it's already been established because I see Barney Gurnan was name dropping Gavin Hunt in the first episode. So
does he have a team? Gavin Hunt.
No, yes, it's Barney's team. But on that subject, Premier League show. But last question for Sky. I mean, are you shopping for Gavin Hunt now? I mean, he's got no team, as Liam says. Do you want him to go to Chiefs?
Anyone but Ernst Middendorp at this stage, and Gavin Hunt is available. So, I'm sorry to say that, but Mr. Hunt is available. Hunty, if you're listening to this, I might actually send him a voice note. Actually, I might say, listen here.
Oh, stop bragging.
Come to Chiefs. So I just want to. Are you calling Hunt?
No, this is Ernst. He says he's not joining your team, Sky. Not your Premier Fantasy team. Okay.
Listen, if Gavin Hunt came on the show, I'd no longer be the most emotional team player on the show.
Okay, guys, let's leave it there. Thank you very much. Last word with Klopp, because you're going to remind folks that we are going to put up our league code.
Yes, we're going to put up our league code at the end of the show. Please make sure that you follow. We'll also tweet it so that everyone knows. We'll be working under the hashtag Premier Fantasies. What we'll also do is make sure that we send out a couple of reminders so that everyone knows when and where and how. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And remember that we've only got 5 days left before deadline. So get your teams in. Get your teams in.
Okay, lovely. Guys, thank you very much. Gabriel, to you and your partner Keegan, Sky and
Thank
James,
you.
well on board. Klopp, who's there? Welcome to you guys, and of course we'll hear from Barney the Lucky Strikers. Lots more still to come. This is Premier Fantasies, folks, and it all starts on Saturday, so make sure that you enter your fantasy team and then you join our league with the details that we've given you.